It's the comeback for Wednesday, June 22nd, and everyone is asking the same question. Has the UFC accepted a bid for $4.2 billion to sell the entire company to a group of investors? Well, the answer you'll get still largely depends on who you talk to, as UFC officials are steadfastly denying persisting reports in the affirmative. UFC President Dana White was a guest on the first episode of the promotion's new official podcast, UFC Unfiltered, and while he didn't specifically address any details that have been reported, he did tell his fighters and employees that they shouldn't be concerned.
This has been one of the most disruptive things. I mean, you guys, imagine the fighters. I mean, I have 400 employees here,
Right.
You know? It's been one of the most disruptive things going on ever in the history of the company. So, yes. Listen, the last thing I do, Jimmy, you know how hard I fought to get you into this thing.
Yes.
You know, last thing I'm going to do is fight that hard to get this thing happening. And a lot of other things that I'm working on right now for everything to bring in another regime or whatever would happen. Listen, everybody who works for me, let this be the last thing you worry about.
Speaking of UFC Unfiltered, White's lengthy appearance provided several newsworthy moments, including a surprisingly positive outlook on Fedor Emelianenko's remaining career after a controversial decision win over Fabio Maldonado.
We'll see. We've been negotiating for many,
exciting.
many years. So,
There's still a market for Fedor in the UFC, I think, just because he's never been there.
yeah, well, I'll tell you this. The Fight Pass did very well with that fight. So, people do still want to watch Fedor.
White also addressed the concerns leveled by perennial contender Donald Cowboy Cerrone after his incredible UFC Fight Night 89 performance when he used his platform at the post-fight press conference to lobby for a raise. White said the two have talked and are on the same page, and that Cerrone was, quote, half joking.
Now, Cerrone at the press conference comes out and says, you know,
God, that all sounds nice. According to my pay, I don't mean to the UFC, but we'll see.
okay, now, me and Cerrone are as tight can be, okay? And there's a lot of personal stuff with me and Cerrone, too, on the positive side, right? But the kid made over $200,000 on a fight on free TV on the co-main event, and the gate was $900,000. I mean, how much money does Cerrone expect to make on the co-main event? You know, the kid looks great. Never held a world title, right? And made over $200,000. Co-main event, $900,000 gate, free TV.
Yeah, Cerrone's...
And we talked. We've talked, me and Cerrone.
And have you made that point to him? I'm imagining you have.
He absolutely agreed. What he said to me is, I was half joking.
Yeah.
The latest USA Today Sports MMA Junkie MMA rankings are out, and after his impressive UFC Fight Night 89 win, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is now number 2 in the welterweight division. Cerrone also debuts on the welterweight list, but in our minds at least, Wonderboy has cemented his status as the number 1 contender and should get the winner of Robbie Lawler versus Tyron Woodley at UFC 201. There's much more to catch up on from Tuesday, including our own Ben Folk exploring why he thinks there's historical precedence to George St. Pierre's pending comeback, as well as why it seems Dan Henderson may very well get that fight he wants against current UFC middleweight champ Michael Bisping. So check it all out at MMA Junkie.